Yeah, good day, my good listeners. You're welcome to Independent TV 7. These are five major atrocities committed by disgraced Police Commissioner Abba Kyari. Well, I would like you to hit the bell icon so that you can get notification from our news track. Well, thanks for listening, and these are the details in full. Well, five major atrocities committed by disgraced Police Commissioner Abba Kyari. As disgraced cop Abba Kyari faces policies and police investigation and 5 possible extradition to answer for wire fraud, and the US People Gazette chronicles some of the past complaints against Abba Kyari. Well, under investigation, Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari had over time wore the toga of Nigeria's Super Cup for his celebrated crime, boasting heroics despite repeated allegations of abuse of office, rights violation, and high-level extortion. Mr. Kyari, who heads the Inspector General of Police Intelligence Response Team, rose to fame after he claimed credit for the apprehension of Taraba notorious kidnap kingpin Amisu Wadume in 2019. Before his indictment in the Hush Puppy scandal, Mr. Kyari had repeatedly claimed victory in the arrest of top criminals, including notorious kidnapper Chukwudi Evans Onwa Madike. Despite the celebrated successes, the police chief failed to stay away from habitual atrocities fondly committed by officers of the Nigerian police force, as he was severally accused of extrajudicial killings and high-level extortion. Mr. Kyari has been dogged by multiple allegations of brutality and corruption, but his controversial side was long overlooked for his adorned image as a crime-busting police officer, up until his indictment in one of the biggest international scandals involving Ramon Olorunwa Abbas, popularly known as Hush Puppy. People's Gazette had earlier detailed how court documents exposed the DCP's dealings with Hush Puppy. Officials said in court filing that Mr. Abbas disclosed during the interrogation that he paid bribes to Mr. Kyari to have one of his rivals arrested and jailed in Nigeria following a dispute over $1.1 million dupe over a Qatari business person. The FBI said Mr. Abbas and Kyari have been friends and were both involved in a conspiracy to launder money. Following the revelation, a warrant of arrest was issued for the arrest of the Super Cup. In a bid to save its face, the Nigerian police, in a late move on Sunday, announced the suspension of the commissioner and also set up a special investigation panel to grill him on FBI allegations. The police authorities had hitherto brushed off accusations against Mr. Kyari prior to FBI indictment. In light of unfolding events, the Gazette profiles 5 atrocities committed by DCP Kyari, which is number 1, the murder of Ofa robbery suspect Michael Adiku. One of many of the atrocities committed under the leadership of DCP Kyari was the murder of Michael Adiku, a member of the Ofa robbery gang who died in detention. Mr. Adiku was part of the robbery squad that held Ofa hostage. In 2019, the former police officer and his team robbed banks and attacked police stations in the community, killing about 17 people. While there were allegations that the robbery had a political undertone, the robbery suspects were forced to accuse former Senate President Bukola Saraki of sponsoring the robbery operation. Mr. Kyari's team claimed that one of the suspects was spotted at a social function with Mr. Saraki, adding that the suspects were political thugs working for the former Senate President. However, Friday, Akini Bossi, one of the suspects being tried for his involvement in the robbery, told the court that the police forced him and the other suspects to indict Mr. Saraki. Exonerating Mr. Saraki, the suspect said that Mr. Adiku was killed following his refusal to go with plans of Mr. Kyari to indict the former Senate President. Mr. Akini Bossi further disclosed that Mr. Kyari and his team killed 5 people to intimidate him and other of our robbery suspects to do their bidding. While the DCP and his cohort alleged that Mr. Adiku slumped and died, he however failed to produce a post-mortem report to validate the claim before the court. The suspect's confession showed that Mr. Adiku was killed to cover up facts surrounding the robbery that took place in Offa. Well, number 2 on the list says the illegal expropriation of assets of Enugu billionaire kidnappers Collins Ezenwa. Mr. Kyari and his team during a gun battle in 2018 murdered a man called Collins Ezenwa, an Enugu-based billionaire kidnapper. The police chief, who didn't stop at killing the kidnapper, was alleged to have illegally taken over Mr. Ezenwa's multi-million naira assets without any form of court injunction. Mr. Kyari had said Mr. Ezenwa was a notorious kidnapper who had committed untold atrocities before he was killed. However, the National Human Rights Commission petitioned the then IGP Ibrahim Idris, accusing Mr. Kyari of illegal depleting the assets of Mr. Ezenwa, a former police corporal. The Super Corp discarded the allegations by Mr. Ezenwa's wife and the NHRC, with claims that the allegations were cheap blackmails to dent his image after he refused to take a bribe and to settle the case against her late husband. Mr. Kyari took into possession hotel and duplex linked to Mr. Ezenwa, estimated to be about 400 million naira, according to the NHRC. Number 3, which is the violation of human rights and extortion of 41 million naira from Lagos businessman Mr. Kyari, while as Operation Commander OC of the now disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad Ikeja in 2014, extorted funds to the tune of 41 million naira from Hafiz Mojid, a Lagos-based businessman. In a court document seen by People's Gazette, Mr. Mojid alleged that Mr. Kyari and 2 other officers broke into his Ajah residence illegally. Mr. Mojid, who was at home with his pregnant wife, an 18-month-old son and mother-in-law, said he thought it was a robbery. The businessman alleged that he was battered alongside his family members. Mr. Kyari and his cohorts forcefully carted away items including phones, checkbooks, bank cards, and documents after ransacking the house. Mr. Mojid was then taken to the SARS Special Anti-Robbery Squad Service office in Ikeja, where he was detained for 14 days. While in detention, Mr. Mojid alleged that Mr. Kyari coerced him to sign 3 Zenith Bank checks in the sum of 150,000 naira each, making 450,000 naira between October 22 and October 22, 23 in 2014. The police, under the instruction of Mr. Kyari, obtained the password to his bank card, withdrawing another 395,000 naira between October 20 and 23 in that same year, 2014. Mr. Mojid also alleged that he was taken to Diamond Bank on the instruction of Mr. Kyari to forcibly transfer 41 million naira and 800,000 from his corporate account into the account of a man, Obinna Edward, on October 23rd and 24th in that 2014. However, the Lagos Federal High Court in 2017 ruled that the police pay compensation of 5 million naira to Mr. Mojid for infringing his fundamental human rights and subjecting his family to such an inhuman treatment. The failure of Mr. Kyari and the police force to honor the court judgment made Mr. Mojid seek redress at the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry for Victims of SARS-related abuses in 2020. In a fresh petition filed on October 22, 2020, to the police panel, Mr. Mojid revisited the ordeal at the hands of Super Cop Kyari back in 2014. However, the Gazette is unsure if Mr. Mojid finally got his overdue compensation. Number 4, which is the alleged rape of pro-Biafran agitator Ada Ngozi Chukwu. Amidst calls for probe of the Super Cop following his latest indictment by FBI Federal Bureau of Investigation from the US, a Facebook user Penultimate Friday accused Mr. Kyari of arresting and raping Ada Ngozi Chukwu, a pro-Biafran agitator. The Facebook user, identified as Collins Opuruzo, alleged that the Super Cop arrested Mrs. Ngozi Chukwu without charging her to court, rather keeping her to himself. Can you hear these atrocities? Well, let me quickly rush and go to the fourth one. The arbitrary arrest and request for 1 million naira illegal bail fee. That came from Raphael Teso, and Moses Mfe, who have been in police custody since 2019 without being charged, is another atrocities committed under the watch of disgraced cop Abba Kyari. Can you see that this Abba Kyari has really dented his image, have done havoc so many ways and so many times? Well, I would like you to share your comments towards this. Thanks for listening and God bless you.